Namaskar. Today I came with very important lecture video that is on pharmacotherapy of pain. So in pharmacotherapy of pain, today I will discuss about uh, what is pain, what are the physiology behind pain, and what are the drugs which is used for the treatment of pain. So today uh, we'll basically discuss on non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So let's come to the topic, and I will request to all, if you think my video lecture is good or it is helping you, then please like and subscribe my channel, the Dr. Rajesh Pharmacology Solution. So on this YouTube channel I will upload the lecture video subsequently. So today we'll discuss on pharmacotherapy of pain. So what do you mean by pain basically? So pain is basically ill-defined, unpleasant sensation and emotional experience usually evoked by external or internal noxious stimulus. Any noxious stimulus, either mechanical, chemical or the thermal. Pain can be evolved by this noxious stimulus and any unpleasant sensation by this stimulus, that is pain. Pain is also redefined, you can define it as perception instead of sensation, because it is always a psychological state. Pain can be perceived, anybody can feel the pain, so that's why it is redefined. So pain is basically a perception instead of sensation, and it is said that it is always a psychological state because anybody can feel the pain. The word pain derived from Latin word piona. Piona is a Latin word. This is meaning of punishment. So if you see on our history in previous time, in middle age or before that middle age, basically the king used to give pain to punish the people, and from there now the pain word came from, and that main word is a Latin word piona. So pain coming from punishment, for punish the people for any crime or any other things, the king that time used to give pain, and these nowadays the modern pain is come from that word punishment. Pain is always subjective and it is differently experienced by each individual. Pain can perceived by different individual differently. A physiology of pain. What are the mechanism behind physiology of pain? So there are basically two component which is important for pain perception. That is, one is nociceptive component and another is a affective component. Nociceptive, this is disabling unpleasant sensation evoked by noxious stimuli and conveyed to the CNS by ascending pathway. That is nociceptive component. Any stimuli, either mechanical, thermal or chemical stimuli perceived, evoked by any noxious stimuli, the sensation, unpleasant sensation conveyed to the CNS by the nociceptive component by ascending pathways. Another is affective component. It is basically a psychological response towards the pain and conveyed from the CNS to the dorsal horn by descending pathways. So these are the two components which are very important for perception of the pain, and the process is called nociception. So what is nociception? Basically the process to feeling of the pain या perception of the pain is called nociception. It is psychological process by which pain is perceived. Specialized neurons responsible for these are called nociceptors. It appears that tactile sensation is transmitted by a large diameter or fast conducting nerve fiber या a small diameter or slow conducting nerve fiber, that is C fiber. Impulses from nociceptors reaching the spinal cord activate first transmission in cell in substantia gelatin-nosa, resulting, that is in stem, brain stem, resulting output reaching the higher center leading to perception of the pain. So this is basically physiological process behind pain. In this way, pain, anybody can perceive the pain. That is pain receptors. I discussed about slow diameter, fast conducting nerve and slow conducting nerves. So the receptors which help to carry the pain, that is pain receptors. This is basically a specialized naked nerve ending found in almost every tissue of the body, activated by stimuli either mechanical, thermal or chemical, distinguished from other receptors. This can be myelinated A delta or unmyelinated, that is C fiber. These are some characteristics of myelinated unmyelinated fiber, that is feature. These are the feature: myelinated A delta fiber and unmyelinated C fiber. Number is, this is less in body, this is more in body. Myelination, myelinated, unmyelinated. Diameter A delta fiber is 2 to 5 micron, while C fiber is 0.4 to 1.2 micron. Conduction velocity 12 to 30 millisecond, and C fiber 0.5 to 2 milli per second. A specific stimulus more sensitive to pressure, while C fiber more sensitive to chemical agents. Impulse conduction, A delta is a fast component of the pain, while C fiber is a slow component of the pain. This is characteristics of the pain fibers. Physiology of pain. If you talk about physiology of pain, then any noxious stimulus, about other inflammatory cells, cancer cells, tissue injury, osteolysis, any inflammation leading to formation of noxious factor, that is bradykinins, prostaglandins, nerve growth factors, serotonin, ATP. So these are the factors which initiate the pain. They carried by nociceptors to the brain and they perceive the pain. So this is basically physiology of the pain, how pain is perceived by different countries. There are some clinical types of pain, that is somatic pain, pain arising from skin, from the deep nose visceral structure like muscles, bones and joints. Visceral pain, diffuse, less easily localized, accompanied by sweating, nausea, fall in blood pressure. Referred pain, deep pain, whether visceral or somatic in origin, may be misinterpreted as coming from some part of the body other than actual site of stimulation. Referred pain, that is mostly the cardiac pain during heart attack. They originate from the heart and refer to the left half of the body. It is very difficult to pinch point from where actually pain is originated, that is the referred pain. Refer to the another parts. Differentiation pain, the partial damage to axon or nerve membranes which become very sensitive to mechanical and chemical stimuli. Any spinal cord pain, nerve related pain, that is called differentiation pain. This is about what is pain and what are the physiology behind the pain. But main topic is how to treat the pain. What are the pharmacotherapy of pain? So the drugs which possesses significant pain relieving properties, the drugs which used to treat the pain is called analgesic. The drug which is used to treat the pain, which is used to relieve the pain, that is analgesic. And there are two types of analgesic nowadays. One is opioid type, also called narcotic या morphine type of analgesic. Another is non-opioid type या non-narcotic, also called NSAID. The NSAID is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. NSAID is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So this is the two types of drugs which are used for the treatment of or relieving of the pain. So today we'll discuss about non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. This is very important topic as far as exam is concerned also. Long question and many short question could be asked from non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Very important topic. So if you talk about classification of drugs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs can be classified in the either non-selective COX inhibitors and the preferential selective COX inhibitors and selective COX-2 inhibitors. What are COX inhibitors we'll discuss later. So non-selective one is salicylate in aspirin, pyrazolone derivative phenylbutazone, indole derivative indomethacin, propionic acid derivative ibuprofen, enthalinic acid derivative mefenamic acid, oxycam derivative piroxicam, pyrrole derivative ketorolac. Another preferential COX-2 inhibitors, that is diclofenac, aceclofenac, nemosalite, selective COX-2 inhibitors, celecoxib, etizocoxib, and some are analgesic, antipyretic, but with poor inflammatory action, that is paraminophenol derivative, paracetamol, most famous drugs, pyrazolone derivative, metamizole, benzoxazosine derivative, that is nefopam. So these are the classification of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Let's talk about mechanism of action of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. As we discussed, physiology of pain, because all inflammatory markers, either cancer cell, injury in the tissue, inflammatory markers, osteolysis, these causes formation of prostaglandin, bradykinin. No. So how this is formed? Basically this triggers arachidonic acid, and arachidonic acid is liberated responsible for formation of prostaglandins in the presence of COX enzyme, and these prostaglandin and other like leukotrienes, cytokines, TNF alpha, these are the responsible for the pain. So when any stimuli, either chemical, thermal या mechanical, causes arachidonic acid to liberate prostaglandin in the presence of COX enzyme. So we have to inhibit these COX enzyme. Thus, this arachidonic acid cannot liberate prostaglandin, which is responsible for pain, inflammation, and the fever. That's why we are going to inhibit COX enzyme. This COX enzyme. COX is of two types, COX-1 and COX-2. So some are non-selective that is inhibit by both types of COX enzyme going to inhibit by that drugs. Some are preferential for COX-2 and some are selective COX-2 enzyme inhibitor. But basically we have to inhibit this COX enzyme. Thereby arachidonic acid does not form prostaglandin, which is responsible for pain, inflammation and fever. So any stimulus, either chemical, mechanical or the thermal, causes arachidonic acid to liberate prostaglandin. So basic aim is to stop arachidonic acid to liberate prostaglandin, because prostaglandin can only be formed in the presence of COX enzyme. So we are going to inhibit the COX enzyme. So these are the COX inhibitor basically. NSAID is basically a COX inhibitor. So either we are going to inhibit this COX by the COX inhibitor, either non-selective COX inhibitor or the selective COX inhibitor. Thereby pain can be relieved. Again we have discussed mechanism of action furtherly. Though arachidonic acid responsible for formation of these prostaglandin, which is carry out different functions. So we are going to block this COX enzyme by NSAID. Thereby these arachidonics cannot form these interfering prostaglandin other PGE2, thromboxane A2. So another things can be diminished, oxygen can be diminished. Pain can be relieved because prostaglandin does not synthesize, and this is the only responsible for pain, inflammation and fever. Benefit due to PG synthesis inhibition. अब our NSAID drugs या non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs going to inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis. So what are the benefit due to prostaglandin synthesis inhibition? So these are the benefits: analgesia, prevention of pain, nerve ending sensitization, antipyretic, anti-inflammatory. Because these prostaglandins responsible for pain, inflammation and fever. Also antithrombotic, because also thromboxane A2 is also inhibited because of prostaglandin, and platelet aggregation does not occur in our body because of PG synthesis inhibition. Also it also helps in closure of ductus arteriosus. So these are the benefit we can get by inhibiting prostaglandin synthesis. But when we inhibit prostaglandin synthesis, then some side effect must be occur in a body. So these toxicities, or you can say adverse reaction, can happen by inhibition of PG synthesis, that is gastric mucosal damage. Because gastric lumen is maintained by prostaglandin. Prostaglandin is responsible for maintaining of gastric lumen. So if you inhibit prostaglandin, gastric mucosal damage can occur. Bleeding, inhibition of platelet function because thromboxane A2 is going to diminish. Limitation of renal blood flow, sodium and water retention can be happen. Delay and prolongation of the labor can happen because prostaglandin also maintain the labor pain. Asthma and anaphylactic reaction, susceptible individuals can be happen. So these are the some toxicities, or you can say side effect can be happen when we inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis. So most important NSAID is the salicylate. Salicylate and most common used NSAID I am talking about salicylate. Salicylates are salts of salicylic acid. Example, methyl salicylate, sodium salicylate. Aspirin is taken as a prototype drug of the salicylates. So this is most used drugs, and today in non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs we will discuss the most important drugs one by one. Pharmacological action of salicylates. So pharmacological action on basically analgesic. Salicylates is a good analgesic because aspirin reduced prostaglandin synthesis by inhibiting COX enzyme. So aciprin is going to inhibit prostaglandin synthesis. Thereby prostaglandin is responsible for pain. So that's why it acts as an analgesic, which sensitizes tissue to the pain formed during injury or inflammation. The pain is relieved without euphoria, hence there is no development of tolerance and dependence. Aciprin also relieves the pain but does not produce euphoria. Euphoria means feeling of well-being. So it does not produce euphoria, so development of tolerance or dependence can be minimized or does not happen, you can say. Also, pharmacological action is antipyretic. Antipyretic means the drug, any compound which reduce the temperature, body temperature. In presence of fever, salicylates bring down temperature to normal level, but in normal individuals there is no change in temperature. Very good drug. It will reduce the temperature in febrile patient, but in normal patient it does not reduce the temperature. In fever, pyrogen protein circulates in the brain. This triggers hypothalamus to synthesize prostaglandin, and these drugs going to reduce the prostaglandin, thereby resulting it is going to diminish the body temperature. Another important action is anti-inflammatory. At higher dose, aciprin act as anti-inflammatory agents. Sign of inflammation is suppressed, but progression of disease in like rheumatoid arthritis, rheumatic fever and osteoarthritis is not affected. Inflammation is suppressed, but progression cannot be inhibited by aciprin, because in rheumatic fever or rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, inflammation is high, and aciprin can suppress the inflammation, but progression cannot be suppressed by aciprin. Prostaglandin present in inflammatory site are responsible for edema, erythema and the pain. This can be minimized by the aciprin. These are the important pharmacological action of the aciprin. Another is a respiration. Pharmacological action of respiration: increase consumption of oxygen in therapeutic dose, or you can say 4 to 6 gram per day, by skeletal muscles, resulting increased CO2 production. Stimulate respiratory center, so it increases depth and rate of respiration. So aciprin can increase depth and rate of respiration. Acid-base balance, it produces significant respiratory stimulation because it increases depth and rate of respiration. So more CO2 is washed out, resulting respiratory alkalosis can happen if you prescribe, if you give the aciprin. Another important pharmacological action is metabolic effects. It enhances the cellular mechanisms due to more O2 is used, more oxygen used and more CO2 is produced, leading to increased heat production. So aciprin can increase the heat production in the body. Pharmacological action on gastrointestinal tract. Aciprin is a gastric irritant and it leads to nausea, vomiting. It also triggers CTZ, a chemoreceptor trigger zone, to produce vomiting. CVS on cardiovascular system. Therapeutic dose, no significant cardiovascular effect are seen by aciprin. It is safe for the cardiovascular. Another important pharmacological action, immunological effects. In higher dose, it suppresses several antigen-antibody reactions, including inhibition of antibody production, antigen-antibody aggregation, and antigen-induced release of histamine. So these effects also contribute to beneficial effect in rheumatic fever. Because in rheumatic diseases, there are antigen-antibody reaction takes place, and these drugs going to inhibit antigen-antibody reaction. So it is very good for the rheumatic fever. Another important is uric acid excretion. In higher doses, if you give aciprin in higher dose, it increases excretion of uric acid from the urine, but it is not beneficial because it required large doses. In higher dose, if you give higher dose, it increases the excretion of uric acid from the urine, but still in therapeutically it is not beneficial because it increases very high dose, and high doses cause a lot of side effect also, so that was not beneficial. Another important pharmacological action on blood. In a small dose, aspirin irreversibly inhibits platelet cyclooxygenase, thereby thromboxane A2 synthesis by the platelets. Therefore, interfere with platelet aggregation and prolongs the bleeding time. Aspirin inhibits platelet COX in the portal circulation itself, and therefore even a small dose of aspirin is adequate for its anti-platelet action. So on the blood, aspirin causes inhibit platelet cyclooxygenase and thereby thromboxane A2 synthesis is diminished. So platelet aggregation is reduced and prolong the bleeding time. And this is the anti-platelet effect. This is called anti-platelet effect. So for it can increase the bleeding time. So you have to stop aspirin before surgery, because it can increase the bleeding time, and because of it reduce the platelet aggregation, it has anti-platelet effect. So these can be also given in myocardial infarction to reduce the aggregation of the platelet and in thrombotic diseases. The another important effect is local effects. The salicylic acid, when applied locally, is a keratolytic and it has mild antiseptic or fungistatic action. So salicylic acid can also applied locally, topically you can say. When we apply it topically, it can act as a keratolytic, and also it is a mild antiseptic or also fungistatic. So topically it is also important to reduce the fungal infection, or as an antiseptic also, and also keratolytic. As far as pharmacokinetic is concerned, being an acidic drugs rapidly absorbed from the stomach and upper small intestine, aspirin is poorly soluble, hence not well absorbed. The aspirin deacetylated in liver, plasma and other tissues. Alkalinization of urine has done and excretion of the salicylate. If you alkalize the urine, you can increase the excretion from the body. On the basis of various pharmacological effect, we can use aspirin in different ways and different diseases. The number one is analgesic, because it has analgesic action. It will reduce the prostaglandin synthesis. That's why it act as an analgesic. So as an analgesic in headache, backache, myalgia, joint pain, dysmenorrhea can be used. For headache, including mild migraine, also analgesic can be used. It is effective in a low doses 0.3 to 0.6 gram to 6 hourly. 0.3 to 0.6 gram 6 hourly can be used for the analgesic. Antipyretic, fever of any origin. Paracetamol being a safer drug, paracetamol is used as an antipyretic, but aspirin can also be used as a antipyretic. Acute rheumatic fever, dose of 4 to 6 gram per day in 4 to 6 divided doses, aspirin being dramatic relief in acute rheumatic fever. As an anti-inflammatory, effective in inflammatory conditions like arthritis, fibromyositis, because it is going to reduce the prostaglandin synthesis. In rheumatoid arthritis, aspirin in the dose of 4 to 6 gram per day is effective in most cases and produce the relief of pain, swelling and the morning stiffness in the rheumatoid arthritis. It is very good drug for rheumatoid arthritis. Osteoarthritis, it affords symptomatic relief only Paracetamol can be a first choice analgesic in the osteoarthritis, but aspirin can also be given. Post myocardial infarction or post stroke patients, because it reduces the platelet aggregation, have a anti-platelet effect. By inhibiting platelet aggregation, it lowers the incidence of reinfarction in the low dose, that is 50 to 30 milligram per day, because it is going to reduce the platelet aggregation by reducing thromboxane A2 synthesis. Other use: delay the labor pain can maintain by the prostaglandin. So by inhibiting the prostaglandin, labor can be delayed. Colon cancer prevention: colon cancer can be prevented by giving the aspirin. Patent ductus arteriosus: aspirin given to bring about closure of patent ductus arteriosus in the newborn. It helps to closure of the newborn baby, the closure of the bone of the newborn baby. So it can can helpful in the patent ductus arteriosus. Bartter syndrome: excess production of prostaglandin is thought to be responsible for Bartter syndrome, characterized by raised plasma renin, and this can be given in the Bartter syndrome. The other effect, you can use the other use of the aspirin in the different conditions. While main use is as analgesic, as antipyretic, and as anti-inflammatory, and as a anti-platelet effect. In another use also, systemic mastocytosis. It can also given in systemic mastocytosis, excessive proliferation of mast cell in the reticuloendothelial system, bone marrow, and other tissues may result in sudden episode of hypotension, and this is due to release of prostaglandin D2, and these drugs going to diminish the prostaglandins of any form. That's why it can also be given in systemic mastocytosis. Cataract: it can also be given in cataract. Aspirin or ibuprofen or paracetamol have been useful to slow the cataract formation. It is seen that. Local use: keratolytic, fungostatic, and mild antiseptic, because if you use aspirin as a topical application, it can act as a fungostatic. So it can also be used as a keratolytic, fungostatic, and a mild antiseptic. Drug interaction: there are several drug interaction of the NSAID and the aspirin also. So aspirin salicylate compete for the protein binding sites and displace the drug molecule, resulting toxicity with warfarin, heparin, phenytoin, and sulfonylurea. So we should take precaution, or we should not prescribe these aspirin or salicylate with warfarin, heparin, phenytoin, and sulfonylurea. NSAID may blunt the effect of antihypertensive and diuretic. Salt and water retention also can be happen. Potentiate other nephrotoxic drug, because it will be prostaglandin synthesis in the kidney. So other nephrotoxic drugs should not be prescribed with the aspirin. Adverse effect of NSAID, adverse effect of aspirin. This is the general adverse effect for the all the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on gastrointestinal tract. It causes nausea, vomiting, gastric irritation, erosions, peptic ulceration, gastric bleeding, perforation, esophagitis, because the lumen of gastric mucosa is maintained by prostaglandin. When prostaglandin synthesis is diminished, ulceration can happen and bleeding, erosion can be happen. So that's why the long-term therapy of NSAID or aspirin causes the ulcerative colitis. Ulcer disease, a peptic ulcer you can say. Renal, sodium and water retention can happen. Chronic renal failure, papillary necrosis, very rare, but it can be happen. Hepatic raised transminase, hepatic failure is there. Very sometime it may be seen. On CNS, headache, mental confusion, behavioral disturbances can be happen. Hematological bleeding, thrombocytopenia, hemolytic anemia can be happen. Bleeding because of reduced platelet aggregation. Others, Ray's syndrome seen in children, form of hepatic encephalopathy. Asthma exacerbation, nasal polypsosis, skin rashes, pruritus. Angioedema, allergic reaction, it causes postpartum bleeding due to platelet aggregation. So these are the side effect or adverse reaction can cause by giving aspirin or the NSAID. Salicylism. The special side effect caused by salicylate, that is called salicylism. So higher doses given for longer time, as in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis may causes chronic salicylate intoxication termed salicylism. This is a viva question or very short question. What is this is very much important question for short answer type. So what do you mean salicylism? So in higher doses given for long time, as in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis, because it required longer time, treatment may cause chronic salicylate intoxication termed as a salicylism. The syndrome is characterized by headache, dizziness, vomiting, tinnitus, mental confusion, diarrhea and dehydration. This is reversible on withdrawal of salicylate. These symptoms can be withdrawn or can be reversed. The symptoms of salicylism can be reversed when stopping the drugs or withdrawal of the salicylate. Contraindication: should stop the drug before surgery because it can be increase the bleeding time. It is not good for surgery. So you have to stop. You have to contraindicate it during the before the surgery. Thank you. So in non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, because of video can be long, it is very long topic and very important topic. That's why I am going to prepare video on 2 lecture. So first lecture we are discuss about in summarized what is pain, what is the physiology of pain, and the drugs which is used to relieve the pain, that is analgesic. Analgesic is a 2 types, morphine type or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory types. And today this video we discussed about non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and very important drug aspirin. Aspirin is the most important non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and we discussed about aspirin. Another important drugs we will discuss on another lecture. If you think this video lecture will help you, like and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much. Namaste.